When my husband Angelo retired at the age of 63, his white moonlight Alicia was diagnosed with cancer. Alicia had never married and had no one to depend on her whole life. So Angelo brought her into our home and pampered her like a princess. Meanwhile, I continued to rise early and work tirelessly day and night, taking care of my husband, our son, and our grandson. And now, I was expected to care for his sick white moonlight as well, until one day, I stumbled upon a newly issued marriage certificate tucked deep in the back of a drawer. There, printed in bold, were the names of my husband and Alicia. Suddenly, everything made sense. No wonder Angelo had recently insisted on a fake divorce to buy a house in a better school district for our grandson. No wonder our son and daughter-in-law had been acting so secretive. I packed my things and left the home I had meticulously cared for over the past 30 years. Alone. I bought a beat-up little car and embarked on a solo road trip across the country. Later, Angelo called, overwhelmed from taking care of the ailing Alicia, and asked me to come back. I chuckled. Sorry, old Rin, we're already divorced. Chapter 1. In the drawer of my husband Angelo's study, I found a marriage certificate. The little red booklet had been carefully wrapped in a beautiful cover and placed reverently at the very back of the drawer. The names Angelo and Alicia on the cover stabbed into my eyes. The date was May 28th of last year, Alicia's birthday. Just a month before that, Angelo had divorced me under the pretense of buying a house in a better school district for our grandson. In disbelief, I picked up the certificate and examined it again and again before the truth finally sank in. My husband had married another woman. The pain felt like thousands of needles piercing through my chest. I could barely breathe. So this was what I had become, nameless, without status, living in his home and serving his entire family like a stranger, a free maid. I suddenly laughed, though I couldn't stop the tears from falling. Thunder rumbled twice on the horizon, and the wind howled through the house, tugging at the clothes outside. I didn't go out to gather them. The phone rang several times. I didn't answer. Soon after, the door opened. Alicia walked in, surrounded by Angelo and our son Ethan. My little grandson chattered nonstop around her, joking and clinging to her affectionately. Grandma Lou, you're so gentle and pretty, way better than my grandma. If only you were really my grandma. Ethan smiled as he ruffled his son's hair. Grandma Lou's had a long day, let her rest. Angelo skillfully bent down to help Alicia into her soft bunny slippers, then took her purse and hung it neatly on the coat rack. Alicia's condition had improved somewhat after chemotherapy. To cheer her up, the whole family had taken her to the amusement park that day. What a picture-perfect family. And I was the unnecessary extra. Chapter 2. Angelo glanced at me sitting motionless on the sofa. The house was a mess, and the kitchen had no scent of dinner cooking. Why are you just sitting here? I called and asked you to bring an umbrella. Alicia got soaked. What if she catches a cold? I looked up and saw that Alicia was still wrapped in the coat he had given her, smiling radiantly under his protection. My grandson was frowning, yelling in frustration. I'm starving. Grandma, why didn't you make dinner? Grandma Lou is sick, and the doctor said she can't go hungry. This little tyrant of a grandson, normally so unruly, suddenly became obedient and caring in front of Alicia. I stared blankly at the ceiling, my voice drained. I'm tired. I don't want to cook. Angelo frowned. Alicia stepped in at just the right moment, her face kind and smiling. It's okay. I can cook instead. No way, Ethan said immediately. Aunt Son's hands are made for playing the piano, not for cooking. Alicia was a renowned concert pianist. She had never married or had children, devoting her life to her art, to the younger generation online. She was a goddess untouched by the mundane world. Even in her 50s, she still maintained a graceful figure and impeccable poise. That day, she was wearing a Chanel suit Angelo had specially bought for her just days ago, elegant and intellectual, in stark contrast to my disheveled appearance. It's no wonder my son believed she deserved to be cherished, while I, his mother, was simply born to toil. She hesitated, but ever since I moved in, I've been troubling Laura a lot. She's been working so hard. Angelo began putting on his leather shoes again and picked up the car keys. All she does is cook and look after the kid. What's so exhausting about that? She's just lazy. Then he took Alicia's hand and led her toward the door. We're going out for dinner. My grandson followed them happily. The door slammed shut behind them. Someone even turned off the lights on their way out. The room was once again plunged into darkness, with flashes of lightning illuminating my pale face. I stared at the empty house, an overwhelming exhaustion seeping into my bones. How had I let myself end up like this? I once had a proper job, but when Angelo's parents passed away, and with his meager income and no one to help, I had no choice but to quit and take care of our child. Later, when our son was old enough to start preschool, I wanted to go back to work, but then Ethan got sick. I told myself I'd return to work once he got better, but then came exam after exam, so I kept waiting for him to grow up, to go to college, to get married, then for the grandson to grow up. And just like that, my entire life was consumed by the trivial details of others' lives. Chapter 3. I went back to my room and lay down. Suddenly, everything felt utterly meaningless. They returned home, chattering and cheerful after dinner. Angelo opened the bedroom door. "Why are you still sleeping? The house is a mess. And did you heat up Alicia's medicine? She still needs her medicinal bath later. Go run the hot water for her." This was part of my daily routine. They took my efforts for granted. No one ever asked me, "Are you tired? Have you eaten?" I kept my eyes shut and said nothing. Angelo came in and nudged me, but I didn't move. Outside, Alicia called for him softly. He hurried out. The herbal bath water for Alicia had to be slow-boiled for 2 hours beforehand. Angelo fumbled with the stove and couldn't get it started, growing frustrated and tugging at his hair. Alicia consoled him gently. "It's okay. Missing one day won't hurt. Laura must be exhausted. Let her rest." How understanding. Angelo grumbled, annoyed. "She's just lazy." I heard every word clearly from the bedroom. I suddenly laughed. For 30 years, I was always the first one up making breakfast for the whole family, and the last to sleep after scrubbing the house clean. I cooked, cleaned, managed every detail, until my back throbbed so badly at night that I couldn't straighten up. And all I got in return was, "She's just lazy." Outside, Alicia said something that made Angelo laugh again. The two of them chatted excitedly about art, about youthful memories, reliving their intense and tender love story. They talked all the way past midnight. Only then did Angelo, reluctantly, return to bed. He lay down beside me, and the air filled with the scent of gardenias, Alicia's perfume. Delicate, calm, just like her. I suddenly felt a wave of nausea. My stomach churned violently. I sat up abruptly and rushed to the bathroom, retching hard. I hadn't eaten or drunk anything all day, so there was nothing to throw up. Angelo stood beside me, frowning in disgust. "You stink. Why don't you use the guest bathroom instead?" I wiped my face, tears mixing with the water as they streamed down. And at that moment, my mind became incredibly clear. When we divorced, you said the apartment on Renmin Road would be mine, and we'd split the savings 50-50, right? I asked. Angelo looked stunned. "Why are you suddenly bringing that up? Didn't we agree it was just a fake divorce?" I looked up at the mirror and saw myself force a faint, bitter smile. "I'm moving out tomorrow." I went back to bed after saying that. He clearly didn't take my words seriously. He even got up several times during the night to check on Alicia, worried she might have a fever or faint. Angelo used to be the kind of man who wouldn't even notice if a bottle of oil spilled in the house. I used to think he just didn't know how to handle life's little details. But after Alicia moved in, I realized he could care for someone. He wrapped every sharp edge of furniture in soft cloth for her. He rearranged the entire house to her taste. He even set up a piano room just for her. Every day he'd sit there, gazing at her playing with such tender eyes. And I was just the woman he married out of necessity when he had nothing. The most suitable wife. A smear of mosquito blood on the wall. Pity I only understand this now, when I'm already 60, with a declining body. Maybe it's too late, but somehow, it still feels like I'm just in time. Chapter 4. The next morning, I was woken by chaos. Angelo burst in. "Where's Alicia's medicine? She can't miss a dose. Why haven't you made breakfast? Alicia's hungry." Outside, Ethan was shouting, "Mom, why didn't you wake us up? I'm going to be late for work. You need to drop Ziru off at school." My grandson was gently coaxing Alicia. "Grandma Lou, why are you up so early? Go get some more rest. The doctor said you need lots of sleep." I got out of bed without expression. I'm going out today. You can all find the medicine, make your own breakfast, and take the kid to school yourselves. It was like someone had pressed pause. Everyone froze. Angelo recovered first, frowning. What's your problem now? Ethan groaned. Mom, can't you wait until we're done with everything? It's early morning, I'm really going to be late. I closed my eyes for a moment. Wait until you're done? I've waited long enough. Too many years. I'm done waiting. I pulled the suitcase I had packed the night before from the closet, heading for the door without even washing my face. Alicia reached for me. Laura, is this because of me? I'm sorry. I've caused you so much trouble. I looked at her delicate, gentle features. Time had not defeated her beauty. She didn't have to wake each morning to serve an entire household. Her soft and elegant face bore the peaceful marks of a life undisturbed. Angelo stepped forward, unable to bear it, pulling Alicia behind him. What are you doing? Alicia's a patient. Can't you be a little more patient and kind? Don't you have any empathy? I laughed angrily. She's sick? Then go find her mother. What the hell does that have to do with me? Angelo hadn't expected me to say something so harsh. His eyes widened in fury. How can you talk like that? You're so unreasonable. I really regret marrying you. Exactly, I replied. Now you've made it. No longer that broke young man with nothing. Now you can finally chase after your precious white moonlight. Good for you. I smiled, though my heart ached, a dull, dragging pain like being sliced by a blunt knife. Not fatal, but unbearable. Alicia murmured. Laura, maybe you misunderstood. Ren and I, our love was in the past. We're just friends now. My grandson cried out, insisting on Grandma Lou, calling me the bad grandma who made everyone upset in the morning. Ethan pressed his temples in frustration. Mom, you're too old for this kind of petty, jealous drama, and right in front of your grandson. Aren't you ashamed? I looked at him. The tiny boy who used to chase after me calling Mama had grown up. He no longer needed me to shield him from life's storms. He had forgotten the promise he once made to protect me forever. I looked at him calmly. Legally, I'm not your mom anymore. The name on your parents' marriage certificate isn't mine. In that instant, the room fell silent. So quiet you could hear a pin drop. Chapter 5. For once, there was panic on Angelo's face. His lips trembled. You know everything? Laura, please. Let me explain, it's not what you think. He tried to catch up with me, but I had already turned around, suitcase in hand, and walked away. As the elevator descended, I felt a sense of ease like never before. Finally, after 30 years in this house, from youthful black hair to silver strands, after wasting half my life, I had taken the first step. I moved into a new home and changed the locks. After years of running around nonstop, I suddenly had all this time, and yet it didn't feel like enough. Time was too short. I bought a new car and enrolled in driving school. I found a part-time job selling vegetables at a supermarket. I was busy every day, yet felt deeply fulfilled. I also joined a WeChat group of car enthusiasts. Every day, I read their stories of road trips and freedom. I envied them so much it ached. I couldn't wait to get my license and hit the road. During this time, my son came to find me, with no one to care for the child. My daughter-in-law had to fly back from B-City to Shanghai. The two of them took turns caring for the kid, juggling it with looking after Angelo and Alicia. They were exhausted, constantly fighting, and already talking about divorce. Ethan looked at me with eyes full of blame, as if I were some unforgivable criminal. Mom, can you stop making trouble? Because of your selfishness, Elena wants to divorce me. She's at the peak of her career and about to get a $1 million stock option package from the branch office. Now her job's ruined, all because of your tantrum. Aunt Son is such a good person, why can't you just tolerate her? How long are you going to keep this up? Every word was a jab, every sentence an accusation. I asked him, you knew your father married Alicia, didn't you? Ethan fell silent. Then, embarrassed and angry, he yelled, it's just a piece of paper. Are you really going to hold a grudge over that? Aunt Son has a terminal illness. Her last wish was to get married. We were just trying to make her happy. What's so wrong about that? I looked at him coldly. So, the school district house for Ziru? That was a lie too? His eyes dodged mine. It's just a marriage certificate. It doesn't change the fact that you're my biological mom, or Zeru's real grandma. You just don't work and have too much time on your hands. You overthink everything. Aunt's son is successful and never petty like you. It was like I was seeing my son for the first time. I looked at him calmly, without the kindness or warmth I once had, as if I were looking at a stranger. How could he say those words with a straight face? You don't know why I didn't work, I said slowly. When you were in kindergarten, I wanted to return to work, but you were always sick. The nanny we hired took you to the hospital 3 times in a week. I was worried, so I quit my job again to care for you. I waited for you to get better, waited for you to grow up, take your college entrance exams, get married. Ethan cut me off sharply, face full of disdain. Those are all excuses. Dad was right, you're just lazy. You got used to the easy life, being waited on hand and foot, and now you just leech off us. I can't even describe how I felt in that moment. My entire body trembled uncontrollably. Get out! I shouted at him for the first time in my life. Get out! As far as I'm concerned, I don't have a son anymore. I want a divorce. He looked at me, stunned. Then he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Don't you dare regret this. Chapter 6. I closed my eyes. I was already numb, but my heart still ached violently. Tears streamed down my face, and the bitterness inside me seeped into every bone. I thought to myself, how did I end up such a failure? No, I refused to believe that. This final stretch of my life, I was going to live for myself. I went shopping at the mall, bought dresses I liked, put on lipstick, tried on foundation, and made myself look spirited again. The next morning, I was back at driving school. During lunch break, I overheard one of the young instructors complaining. I've got this old lady student, she's 60, should be home babysitting, but she's out here learning to drive. Unbelievable. I've explained it 100 times and she still can't get it. Talk about bad luck. A stab of pain hit my chest. I clutched my lunchbox, feeling small and embarrassed. At first, I wanted to pretend I hadn't heard, but as I took a step away, I turned around and walked over calmly to where he sat. For once, his face showed a rare hint of awkwardness. He lowered his head and took a couple of quick bites of food. I smiled at him gently. Coach, I'm 60. The furthest I've ever been is the suburbs. For 30 years, I took care of my husband, my child, and then my grandson. My days were mapped out to the minute, and I never lived a single one for myself. I'm learning to drive because I want to see the world, to see if there's another way to live. He fell silent for a moment, head still lowered, then gruffly muttered, "Be there at 1:30 sharp." I smiled and agreed. From that day on, the coach was noticeably more patient, and I started improving quickly. 3 months later, I finally got my license. I was so happy I invited my best girlfriends out for a meal and bought myself a big bouquet of flowers on the way home. And there, downstairs, I saw Angelo's car. What rotten luck. I ignored him and headed straight upstairs, but Angelo rushed out of the car, catching up with me. He looked at me with a complicated expression, part surprise, part sorrow. Laura, you've changed. Chapter 7. I changed out of the old clothes I used to wear for housework and put on a pretty dress. I curled my hair, put on makeup, and the woman in the mirror was radiant, no longer the dull, shadowy figure I used to be. Angelo, by contrast, looked disheveled. His clothes were wrinkled, and without my care, his once gentle, polished demeanor had disappeared. His handsome face was now drawn and exhausted, streaked with white hair. I felt nothing, no sadness, no joy. I looked at him calmly. What do you want? Laura, can we talk? Angelo's voice was almost pleading. It was the first time I'd seen that expression on his face. When I left, I only took the half of the savings that belonged to me. The rest is still in the account. What is there to discuss? I asked, expressionless. Angelo looked embarrassed. I didn't come about that. He rubbed his forehead. It's been a while. You should have calmed down by now. Come home with me. There was a note of blame in his voice, as if I were the one in the wrong. I looked at him coldly, stating the simple truth. We're already divorced. Alicia got out from the passenger seat, speaking sincerely. Laura, Are you still upset because Ren and I got married? I'm sorry. I didn't think you'd take it so hard. I just didn't want to die with regrets. But nothing improper ever happened between me and Ren. We've always kept it respectful. She was always like this, gentle, poised, making me seem like the one being unreasonable. Angelo instinctively stepped in front of her, as if shielding her, and sighed. Laura, that's just how it is. Alicia and I had feelings, but we always stayed within the bounds of propriety. We've never done anything to betray you. You have to understand, Alicia is gravely ill. This was just a small wish of hers. Can't we even fulfill that? You only lost a marriage certificate. Alicia is losing her life. I laughed, loudly, bitterly. How dignified and righteous that sounded. So as long as you didn't sleep together, you didn't betray me? Angelo, you've kept her photos in your safe for 30 years. We were married for 30 years, and you thought about her every day for all of them. Angelo opened his mouth, his face twisting, unable to refute it. He only kept muttering, "No, it's not like that." I just smiled. Whatever it is, it doesn't concern me anymore. I turned and walked upstairs. At the last second, I couldn't help myself. I turned back and slapped him hard across the face. You didn't dare marry her when you were young and poor. Then when you finally succeeded, you didn't dare admit you were cheating to be with her. You wanted everything. You're weak, spineless, greedy. Don't come here again. You're dirtying my doorstep. I walked away in heels, not sparing another look. I saw Angelo's face go pale in a flash. His thin frame swayed in the wind, full of sorrow and repression. Alicia gently supported him. Ren, she said softly, let it go. Laura won't look back anymore. Chapter 8. I got in the elevator and didn't listen to the rest. That night, after my shower, I was sorting through things for my upcoming road trip. My phone pinged with a message from Angelo. Laura, I know you're upset. I won't argue with your outbursts. Just cool off. When you're done making a scene, come home. The smile on my face disappeared. I blocked him, deleted his contact. I wouldn't let him ruin my peace. I wanted to cut ties completely, but some people just refused to let me go. Angelo began showing up outside my building almost daily. He brought fresh flowers every time, greeting me with a forced smile. I saw you bought lilies the other day. Thought maybe you liked them. I did like lilies, but in 30 years of marriage, he never once bought them for me. Meanwhile, Alicia received grand bouquets of red roses for every concert, every birthday. His love for her had never been hidden, and now, this late apology meant less than weeds on the roadside. So I never once stopped for him. Season after season, I treated him like air. Eventually, Angelo stopped coming. Alicia's condition worsened. She needed monthly chemo now, and he had to be at her side constantly. Ethan called me twice. His voice was full of criticism, calling me heartless, disrespectful in my old age. I was sick of hearing it and blocked him too. The next day, I packed my bags and hit the road. I went to the places I had always dreamed of but never had time to visit. I experienced the beauty of different landscapes and cultures. I tried things I never had before. I saw rivers and mountains, watched the clouds drift across Arai Lake in Dali, sang freely atop Jade Dragon Snow Mountain, gazed at the golden sunrise in Shangri-La. Not long after, I saw a photo in Ethan's social media feed, a family portrait. Angelo had his arm around Alicia's shoulder. Ethan held hands with Elena. Their son, Eric, stood smiling in front. A picture-perfect family. The caption read, "When I was a kid, I always wished I had a beautiful, elegant, fairy-like mother. After all these years, dreams do come true." Below the post, dozens of likes. Mutual friends, Angelo's students, they praised the couple for finding love at life's end, said it was fate, finally fulfilled. Angelo called me. He said he and Alicia were planning their wedding next month. I glanced at the calendar. Next month would have been our 30th wedding anniversary, and the day he promised to take me on a trip when he retired. I used to look forward to it. Now, I just smiled. I wish you a happy wedding. The line went quiet. Then I heard a muffled sob. Laura. I'm sorry. A friend nearby called me over to take pictures on the road. I answered with a bright laugh. The wind carried his voice into scattered fragments. I didn't hear the rest. Chapter 9. After hanging up the phone, I plunged headfirst into my next journey. I headed east, visited the vast Miao villages to immerse myself in local customs, saw the emerald green Xiaokikong in Libo, Guizhou, and finally made it to Jingdezhen, the porcelain town I had long dreamed of. On the road, I met many young people, college students, bold and fearless, embracing the world, office workers, weary of city life, seeking a quiet place for their souls. I listened to their stories and tasted the variety of life. That's when I realized, there's more than one way to live beyond the grind of housework and cooking oil. My homemade chili sauce was a hit with everyone I met. A young girl even suggested I start selling it online, saying it would surely be a success. I was curious, what was live streaming? They showed me how to use a video app, helped me set up an account, and taught me how to edit footage. Step by step, I learned. Eventually, I could upload polished videos on my own. I was nervous at first. My editing was rough, I worried no one would like them. But I began recording the things I saw along the road, the scenery, and the stories. Each day, I shared them, little by little, slowly. My follower count began to grow. People from all over the country left likes and comments, praising me for finding myself again at 60. My live stream room became lively. My chili sauce sold out every time. I was truly grateful to these kind, lovely people. It was they who showed me there was another way to live. You see, even in old age, I still had worth. There was no difference between me and the admired Professor Ren or the elegant Ms. Guan. We were all roses in bloom. Only mine blossomed a little later. People came and went on the road, and I continued on my way. Half a year later, my alma mater held its centennial celebration. Old friends I hadn't seen in years invited me to attend. It's been ages. You always said you were too busy, taking care of your husband and child. You missed every one of our reunions. Yeah, you've always got your family first. What about us? Laura, you're a star now. My daughter looks up to you. She wants your autograph. I was sitting on the balcony of a Tibetan-style guest house, the mountain breeze rushing past. Full of freedom, I smiled through the video call. I'll definitely be there, I said. Chapter 10. At the reunion, I didn't expect to run into Angelo. His beard was overgrown, his hair long and unkempt. He wore a wrinkled, ill-fitting suit. He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. The dark circles under his eyes were almost purple. He stared at me, stunned. Laura, you've changed. You're so different now. I had started dressing more fashionably, learning from younger people. I wasn't quiet or gentle anymore, but I had a different kind of wild beauty. An aura of freedom and ease. I no longer drowned in endless housework. I exercised, cooked nutritious meals, kept my body in shape. I got plenty of sleep and looked years younger. That's what my friends said. Anyway, I responded graciously. Yes, and you've changed too. Angelo tugged at the corners of his mouth, trying to smile, but couldn't. His eyes were red. When he looked down at his rumpled suit, he turned away in shame. An old classmate, unaware of everything, came up, clapped him on the shoulder, and joked, "Professor Ren, finally!" Back in the day, Laura was the brightest student, the one with the most potential. The teachers adored her. And you tricked her into marriage and a house full of kids. We were all jealous of you. Angelo's face went ghostly white. He didn't know where to put himself. The atmosphere instantly turned awkward and strange. Someone quietly pulled that classmate aside and whispered something. He quickly looked embarrassed. Everyone started glancing cautiously at me and Angelo. I kept my composure and lifted my glass. What's everyone staring at? It's a beautiful day, we should toast to it. Yesterday's gone. From now on, we look ahead. The others caught on and raised their glasses, smiling to smooth things over. Angelo's eyes reddened as he downed his drink in one gulp. He barely spoke for the rest of the night. He listened as I told stories from my travels, laughed with my friends about wild adventures and new experiences. On his face, I saw a trace of longing. He had retired, but couldn't live the life we once planned. He was stuck, taking care of the white moonlight he had pined for all those years. As we were leaving, Angelo stopped me. "You've had wine, let me call a car for you." I shook my head and held up my phone. No need. I already booked a driver. He looked dazed for a moment, then smiled bitterly. These apps young people use, I still can't figure them out. But you picked them up fast. I smiled, but said nothing. I'd heard Alicia was now bedridden. Angelo waited on her hand and foot, feeding, cleaning, running errands. He also had to help Ethan take care of the grandson. He was overwhelmed, exhausted, and still blamed. He had no time to explore new things. I watched him shuffle away, unsteady on his feet. After that reunion, I never saw Angelo again. Chapter 11. After a month of rest at home, I unexpectedly ran into someone downstairs. It was my daughter-in-law, Elena. She had a huge suitcase in one hand and held my grandson with the other. Her eyes were swollen and red. Mom, can we stay with you for the night? I'm taking Zero back to B City first thing tomorrow. My grandson looked noticeably thinner, drained of energy, no longer the lively little rascal he once was. The moment he saw me, he burst into tears and threw himself into my arms. Grandma, wah! I missed you. Lou, Grandma is bad. I don't want her. Come back, please. Wah! I glanced at Elena, puzzled. She gave me a bitter smile and explained. After Alicia moved into the Wren household, things were peaceful for a while. Angelo tried to learn how to cook and care for others, for her. But Alicia had lived her whole life wrapped in refinement. She was used to being spoiled, a pampered little princess. If the food wasn't to her liking, she'd nitpick and throw tantrums. If the bathwater was too hot, she'd lash out. She was constantly dramatic, passive-aggressive, a far cry from her usual gentle persona. What they were enduring now was what I had quietly endured for years. That previous calm was built on my blood and tears. Elena cried as she looked at me. Mom, you don't know how bad it's been. She explodes over the tiniest things. I've been commuting between B City and Shanghai for work, while raising a child. But Ethan still asked her to pick up Zero one time, and she was too busy discussing art. She lost him. Even so, Ethan and Dad still defended her, blaming me for not caring enough for my own child. Elena broke down in tears. She told me Alicia hated noise and clutter, constantly nagged, criticized everything and everyone in the house. When Elena finally spoke up one day, Alicia went ballistic. Sick and in pain, she'd become unhinged, like a madwoman. Even from her bed, she'd turn the whole house upside down. No one in the family could control her, and every time there was a problem, Ethan, as a husband, would only ask Elena to endure it, to help take care of Alicia and share his father's burden. Eventually, Elena couldn't take it anymore. She left with the child and divorced Ethan. I sighed. In the end, I couldn't bring myself to turn them away. The next morning, when Elena left with Zero, I slipped a bank card into her bag. It held 200,000 yuan, just a bit of my heart for my grandson. Once they were gone, I packed my things again. I met up with my travel group, and we set off toward the vast northwest. In the yellow dust and desert winds, I felt the grand pulse of life. I encountered wolves during a night spent camping, survived a landslide that nearly took my life, and was almost stranded in a remote no-man's land. But I was never afraid. This road, I would keep walking with courage. Eventually, I visited more and more places. My story spread across the country. Journalists came to interview me. Some even wanted to make a film about my journey. I was stunned. After all, I was just an ordinary woman. I never imagined people would be touched by my story. On the day the movie premiered, I was invited to the studio as a special guest, watching my former despair and struggle replay on screen. Tears fell silently. After all the hardship, I had finally found myself at the age of 60. When I walked out of the theater, I saw Ethan. He was no longer that spirited, ambitious young man. His face was lined and tired, aged far beyond his years. He walked toward me, eyes red. And the moment he opened his mouth, his voice choked. Mom. Chapter 12. As soon as he spoke, he broke down into loud, uncontrollable sobs. His cries drew curious looks from passers-by. Embarrassed, I walked farther away, pretending he wasn't my son. Ethan cried for a while, when I didn't rush to comfort him like I used to. He looked even more pitiful. He sniffled, lips trembling. Mom. I was afraid he'd cry even harder. So I reluctantly responded. He sobbed. Dad's sick. The doctor says he only has 3 days left. Can you please go see him? I froze, completely unprepared for this. In the end, I nodded and got in the passenger seat. On the way to the hospital, Ethan talked a lot. That's when I learned. Shortly after Elena left him, Ethan kicked Alicia out too. She had become impossible to live with. If something didn't go her way, she'd scream. If they ignored her, she'd soil herself on purpose. At night, she'd wail endlessly, disturbing the whole building. When these burdens had been on me and Elena, neither Ethan nor Angelo ever saw them as burdens. They even blamed us, telling us we weren't caring enough. But when it fell on their shoulders, they couldn't even last a month. Mom, I know I was wrong, so wrong. Lou auntie, she's really difficult. Ever since you and Elena left, Dad and I had to take care of her ourselves. Only then did I realize how draining it really is. I was young, impulsive, stupid. I was a monster. I didn't deserve to be your son. His voice shook as he wiped his face. Mom. I'm sorry. Could you come back? I won't be like before. I swear. I stayed silent. Once, I gave all my love to this man and his father. I cared for them with my whole heart. They took it all for granted, only realizing its worth after losing it. I had waited years for this apology, but now, it no longer mattered. I had a new life, a new future. My silence left Ethan hopeless. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, tears falling like rain. When we arrived at the hospital, he stayed in the car, smoking one cigarette after another. I didn't look back, didn't scold him like before for smoking too much. I simply said goodbye politely, then turned and walked into the hospital. Behind me, he moved his lips, wanting to say something, but in the end, he said nothing. Chapter 13. I pushed open the door to the hospital room. Angelo lay on the bed, nothing more than skin and bones, tubes running all over his frail body. He opened his eyes wearily, and the moment he saw me, a faint light flickered in his aged, cloudy gaze. He tried to sit up. I quickly stepped forward and gently pressed him back down. You're still sick. Don't move. I spoke with the courtesy one might extend to an acquaintance, yet his eyes reddened, and his lips trembled. You still care about me, he whispered. I didn't respond. I simply remained silent. Angelo sighed again and widened his tired eyes, as though trying to take a good, long look at me. I often watch your videos, he said. All those places you've been, so beautiful. And you've become more beautiful, more confident. We once dreamed of traveling to all those places when we were young. But now, this old, broken body of mine, cough cough, I doubt I'll ever get to go with you. His face carried a gentle, affectionate smile I had never seen in our 30 years of marriage. But I knew better. Eyes can lie. He had looked at Alicia the same way once. Then, when she became too much, he cast her out without hesitation. I curled my lips into a faint, mocking smile. No part of me believed he had truly repented or fallen back in love. More likely, he just wanted another free caregiver. He didn't notice my coldness and kept speaking. Jordan, keep going, okay? For our promise from youth, I'll keep watching you, like I'm traveling with you in spirit. I interrupted him, impatient. Of course I'll keep going, but it's for myself. He froze, at a loss for words. He reached out weakly, trying to grab my hand. Jordan, are you still mad at me? A violent coughing fit overtook him. He raised his pallid face, pitifully looking up at me. I'm going to die soon. I just don't want to leave with regrets. He knew my heart was soft. He knew exactly which string to pull, but not this time. I simply pulled up his blanket, smiled, and said, exactly, you're dying. So do you want me to bring your white moonlight here to care for you? Might as well fulfill your decades-long fantasy. Angelo's face turned deathly pale, and his body trembled like a leaf in the wind. Finally, he shut his eyes in anguish. Jordan, what I did before was wrong, he said softly. I took your care for granted. Never appreciated your devotion to the family, even made you look after Alicia. After you left, I finally realized how hard she is to care for. I never noticed before. I looked at his pained, regretful face and felt nothing. I simply tore the truth open. Why didn't you notice? Because when the whip doesn't land on your back, it doesn't hurt. It's not that you didn't know, it's that you didn't care about me, or how I felt. Angelo stared at me, stunned by how unmoved I was. His tears streamed down as he let out a bitter laugh. Jordan, you really won't give me a second chance? I stood up, grabbed my bag, and said coolly, I thought, coming to see you one last time was already more than enough. Chapter 14. Once again, I set off on a new journey. This time, I was heading north, to Mo, the northernmost point of the country, a place I had long yearned to see. Along the way, a friend told me something. Ethan had no time to care for Angelo himself. So in the end, he simply left him with a caregiver, but without proper supervision. The caregiver became careless. Bedsores covered Angelo's body. The stench was unbearable. All his dignity and charisma had been stripped away. I recalled all those calls Angelo made to me, and laughed coldly. I stopped concerning myself with what happened next. My feet had already stepped onto the lands of Heilongjiang, where I witnessed scenery unlike the water towns of the south. Bold, rugged, and breathtaking. I stayed in Mo for a month, explored every surrounding corner. That's when I got the call from Ethan. Angelo was dead, but not from illness. It turned out Alicia had somehow snuck into the hospital. She pulled out Angelo's life support tubes, brought him home, dismissed the caregiver, and committed charcoal-burning suicide with him. After being kicked out, Alicia had lived a miserable life. Her health deteriorated, her savings drained, she fell into poverty, and in her final days, she had no one left. She remembered their youthful love, remembered the good in Angelo, and the cruelty when he kicked her out. Love can give life, but it can also take it away, with nothing left to live for. She went to see him one last time, to die by his side. My breathing grew erratic. A pang of sorrow twisted deep in my chest. Ethan, voice low and hoarse, asked, Mom, will you come to Dad's funeral? I shook my head, then looked up at the brilliant auroras in the northern sky and smiled faintly. No, I still have my own road to walk. I hung up. The past now felt so far away. I had no time left for mourning or nostalgia. I said goodbye to Mo, and moved forward once again. Chapter 15. At the age of 70, I finally achieved my goal of traveling across the entire country. Later, I taught myself English, and by the age of 72, I began journeying through the surrounding countries. The more places I visited, the more diverse people I met, and my perspective became broader and more open. Spending a lot of time with young people, I found my mindset growing younger too. At 75, I even tried skydiving. The feeling of soaring through the sky with the wind was truly liberating. Later, my social media account gained great traction, and I finally upgraded to a decent RV. Some fans would get excited when they saw me and come over to greet me. They would ask where my next destination was. I didn't know either. To wherever the wind blows, to wherever freedom calls, to all the places I want to go. In short, I'm always on the road.